very beautiful community, as you know. I'm one of the leading experts on Chechen politics at this hospital, and so we're going to do a bit of analysis together. Mr. Kadyrov, the tyrant of Chechnya, ventilated the idea of resigning in the last 48 hours. But some hours after making that statement, he said it's, after all, something that can only be in Mr. Putin's hands. That Mr. Putin is the man who calls the shots on this. If you know the region, you would know that Mr. Kadyrov announces his possible resignation once a year, maybe a little bit less frequently than that. But I think that given what we're hearing about his health, it's plausible to lean toward this being less gamified than the previous gambits, which might have been more about extracting greater resources and favors from the center, from Moscow. Transitions of power in politics are never controllable unless you have an institutional setting, unless you're in Denmark or the UK. You can set out controlling a transition of power, but you can never be sure that you're going to be able to control it all the way, especially when you're transitioning from an illegitimate tyrant toward something else that's going to be invariably illegitimate. So there is always the risk for Moscow that things go out of hand if there is a transition in Chechnya. And to that extent, even though Putin does have some reasons to have a fixture in place that's not Kadyrov in the future, the very notion of the unpredictability of transition means that potentially Kadyrov going, if he were to go, politically or biologically, is a headache for the Kremlin. Now you might say, doesn't Putin and Kadyrov, doesn't Putin have a good relationship with Kadyrov in the sense that they share a set of understandings about how to operate vis-a-vis one another around mutual advantage? And the answer is yes. Even to the point that Putin would go out of his way to make sure that things happen after Mr. Kadyrov is hypothetically not here, that are in accordance with his wishes. However, what you have to understand also, I think, in politics, is that in moments of transition like this, events become more important than relationships, no matter how long-standing the relationships at hand might be. There's just a couple of schematic remarks about this, and we'll be following closely what happens with this strange dance of interdependence between Grozny and Moscow in the coming months. Now, a tiny health update. I still can't stand, I still can't sit, and I still am not getting treated, but after 12 days in hospital, 16 doctors, I met a doctor today who was much more serious about grasping what's actually going wrong in my body and thinking about treatment. And it's beautiful to be encountered like that after a lot of shoulder shrugging, despite the severity of my illness. And it was very beautiful, and I even shared it here. That doesn't mean I'm going to be better. It just means that it's going to be possible finally to at least explore some treatment avenues. Lots of love, till soon.